Before we start, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Only 2% are subscribed at 1,000 subscribers. I'll be posting a special video. Emily stabbed a piece of chicken, then looked up. I want us to open the marriage. The fork in my hand froze halfway. I'm Jake, 33, and that sentence split my life in two. I actually laughed first because my brain short-circuited. It came out thin and weird like a bad cough. You're serious right now, or this is some joke? She did not laugh, not even a twitch around her mouth. That was the first moment when something heavy moved inside my chest. She put her fork down with this slow, careful motion. It doesn't have to be a bad thing. Her voice sounded calm, almost rehearsed, like she had practiced alone. We could make it something positive for us. Us sounded big and friendly while my pulse hammered. I remember thinking I must have missed some conversation. Like there was a meeting before this meeting somehow. We're married, Em. How is that a positive exactly? My voice cracked on married, and that embarrassed me immediately. It felt like I was begging, and I hated that feeling. She leaned back, arms crossed, eyes locked on my face. We've been stuck for a while, you know that. The way she said stuck made me feel like old gum. I want to feel excited again, and I want you happy too. That last part sounded like an afterthought thrown in for decoration. Back then, I honestly believed I was a reasonable guy. So my brain went straight into problem-solving mode. If you're unhappy, we can work on it together. The word together came out harder than I planned. I was trying to sound calm while gripping my fork. She shook her head, tiny movement like she rejected a memo. Work is all we do lately, it still feels flat. She watched me the way people watch a reaction video. I don't want a divorce, Jake, I just want more room. My stomach flipped at that word room because I knew what it meant. You know that feeling when you sense the trap yet stay seated? That was me right there, staring at my own plate. I should have ended the talk with one clear sentence. Something like, no, absolutely not, this crosses my line. Instead, I inhaled slowly and tried to stay reasonable for her. What does that even look like to you? I pushed the plate away like it offended me. Open sounded clinical, like a menu option or checkbox. She brightened a little, which still makes me sick. I read about couples who feel closer after they try. There it was, the article she never showed me. Where did you read that? Some blog, some forum? She waved one hand like details did not matter much. People talk about it everywhere now, it's not weird. It already felt very weird while she tried to normalize it. She picked up her phone, screen lighting her face for a second. Thumb moved fast, then stopped, then she locked it again. That tiny gesture cut through all her calm explanations. You already talking to someone about this, or what? My voice dropped without my permission, and suddenly the room shrank. Her eyes flashed up quick, almost offended. I asked directly. No, this is about us, not someone else. She held my stare for a beat too long. If it ever happens, it should be fair for both. Fair rolled across the table like a coin I could not grab. I wish I could say I stood up then. Pushed my chair back, grabbed my keys, walked out. Instead, I pictured lawyers, the mortgage, shared holidays, everything. All the messy logistics lined up like a firing squad. Fear did half the talking for me that night. Say I agreed in theory, what does that change? I heard my own voice and wanted to punch myself. She leaned forward, elbows on the table, eyes bright now. We set boundaries, we keep honesty, nobody sneaks around. 3 promises dropped in a row like clean little stones. I tested each word like a loose tooth in my head. Boundaries sounded nice, like safety tape around something dangerous. Honesty felt heavier because I already doubted it. Nobody sneaks around, that part matters most to me. Funny how hard I clung to that line while ignoring everything else. She nodded fast, too enthusiastic, like I passed some exam. That's what I want too, full transparency, no secrets. Her hand slid over to mine on the table. You and me first always, other stuff way below that. I remember wanting so badly to believe that ranking. Here is the part where I start arguing with myself. Because in that moment I told myself she chose me. That if she wanted out, she would just leave clean. So this must mean she loved me and needed variety. It is amazing how nicely you can package your own humiliation. She squeezed my fingers, almost gentle, almost pitying, hard to read. You're my person, Jake. I'm not trying to replace you. Hearing that felt good for about 3 seconds. Then my brain slapped on the obvious second half. She was not trying to replace me, just supplement me. Do you actually want this for you or just me? The question slipped out before I could sugarcoat anything.
JP.
Oz looked down, then back up with steady eyes. I think it could help both of us grow. Grow is one of those words that always show up right before something breaks. I looked at the clock even though time meant nothing. Dinner sat between us untouched, cooling into some gray mass. I could feel my future tilting like a painting on a nail. If I say no, is that the end of us? I hated myself a little for how small I sounded. Her jaw tightened and relaxed like she chewed on the answer. I don't want to threaten you, that's not what this is. Which was a fancy way of avoiding a straight response. I just know I can't keep pretending I'm fine. That last line landed harder than any direct ultimatum. Back then, I thought compromise meant meeting in the middle somehow. So I tried to carve a middle out of a cliff. Maybe we talk about it, not decide tonight. I pushed the words out slowly so I would not choke. In my head, I told myself later I would shut it down. Her shoulders dropped like I had lifted a truck off them. Talking is all I'm asking for right now. She reached for her phone again, almost out of reflex. I can look up some stuff, see how people do it. People meant strangers on screens who would soon feel closer to her than I did. I nodded, even thanked her for being honest about everything. I wanted to end the tension, to go back to normal. Spoiler, there is no normal after you open that door. You either walk through or you slam it and leave. I stayed seated, and that choice will haunt me for years. She dragged a notebook in front of me and popped a pen. Let's map this out before we lose our nerve. My stomach clenched because apparently we were doing paperwork now. I had not even decided if I agreed or not. Some part of me already knew I was outnumbered at that table. She flipped to a clean page and started drawing lines. You do better with structure, so let's build some. That stung more than I want to admit here. I watched her hand move like she had practiced this. Nobody is that organized on a spur-of-the-moment idea. Okay, first thing, physical safety. Her eyes were bright, focused, almost excited in a weird way. Protection always with everyone, no debate on that. I nodded because saying no to that would be insane. It was easy to agree when the stakes were theoretical. Second thing, emotional stuff, she went on without pausing. She drew another line and tapped it with the pen. No falling in love, no serious attachment, nothing that threatens us. I stared at her, then actually laughed a little too hard. You got an off switch for feelings now or what? She gave me this sharp little look over the notebook. I'm serious, there are ways to keep things casual. I rubbed my face and tried to picture that working. How do we measure that, like a scale, a survey? Even as I joked, I could feel how flimsy that rule was. She wrote the words anyway, like writing made them real. No repeated weekends with the same person, that helps. Her pen kept moving while my brain lagged behind. She had terms ready before I could even react. That should have screamed at me, but I muffled it. I forced myself to speak before she filled the page. I need something in here about honesty, not just vibes. My hand rested flat on the table, palm sweating. If this happens, I want to know before, not after. I could hear how desperate that sounded under the tough tone. She nodded fast, like that part cost her nothing. Advance notice, no last-minute surprises, we check in first. Her pen scratched out little bullet points in quick strokes. We tell each other who, when, roughly where, basic outline. Her use of outline made it sound like a meeting agenda. Then she added something that twisted my stomach. But we don't need to share every single detail after. I frowned and sat up straighter in my chair. What counts as detail, because that word does heavy lifting. I knew there was a place there for secrets to hide. She tapped the notebook, thinking, lips pressed together. We say if it's just flirting or more, that level. Her voice slowed on that last part, then picked up. We do not give each other play-by-plays, that ruins everything. I heard the subtext loud, she wanted privacy inside the permission. I am not proud of this next part. I convinced myself that maybe I did not want details either. That maybe less information would hurt less somehow. So I leaned back and pretended to weigh it like a judge. Fine, overview only, but nothing gets hidden on purpose. She underlined the word hidden like that fixed the loophole. Next item, who is completely off limits. My chest tightened because that list should have been obvious. Anyone close to us, coworkers, neighbors, no overlap there. I heard my own voice harden like I finally hit a line. She hesitated for a beat, then put it on the page. Okay, no one from our circle, no one from work. Her pen paused, then she added something under her breath. Unless both of us agree, there is an exception. That last sentence slid in quietly, but it stayed loud in my head. I pointed at the word exception and held it there. Why do we need that? Just leave it out. She shifted in her seat and curled her fingers around the pen. Life is messy, I don't want this to be rigid. She smiled a little and I felt the ground move again. You know that moment when you see a red flag yet paint it beige? That was me staring at that tiny phrase on the page. I told myself flexibility made me mature, not a doormat. So I exhaled and let her keep that stupid clause. I still hate myself for how fast I folded there. She flipped the notebook so it faced me more fully. Another thing, we keep this between us for now. The word now did a lot of work in that sentence. No parents, no friends, nobody needs to weigh in. My first thought was that she did not want judgment from people who knew her. I scratched at a mark on the table to calm my hands. So the biggest shift in our life stays secret. It sounded ridiculous out loud, even to my own ears. What happens if someone sees one of us out somewhere? I pictured running into my brother while she kissed someone else. She pursed her lips, then shrugged like she had rehearsed this too. We keep it vague, say we are taking space, something like that. Her eyes flicked down as she tapped the pen again. People rush to label things, they don't understand different setups. Translation, she did not want to be the villain in anyone's story. I argued more on this part than anything else. Because if I was going to walk into this fire, I at least wanted one trusted person aware I was burning. I need one friend who knows I am not doing this alone. My voice shook on alone, and that embarrassed me more than it should. She stared for a while, jaw working like she chewed the idea. Fine, one for you and one for me, no more. Her finger lifted like she was handing out rations. They have to keep it confidential, no gossip chain. I agreed too fast just because it felt like a small victory. Then she drew a box across the bottom of the page. In here we track how often we check in about this. She wrote weekly review and circled it hard enough to tear the paper. Every 7 days we sit down and talk about how it is going. My chest cramped because suddenly this whole thing looked permanent. I remember thinking a schedule made it safer somehow. Like if we put the chaos in a calendar it behaved better. That is the kind of stupid reasoning I used to survive. I want the option to pull the plug at those meetings. I used that phrase and clung to it like a life jacket. She drew a little star next to that line and nodded. Either of us can pause everything if it feels wrong. Her hand brushed mine again, same gesture as the first night. I don't want to bulldoze you, I want us to design this together. Every time she said together, my fear quieted just enough. Then she dropped the part that still makes me grind my teeth. There is something else that might help you adjust to this. She flipped to another page where she had written phrases already. Therapy, communication tools, emotional readiness, all neat and underlined. I realized I was the one being assessed, not the plan. I think you should talk to someone before you start anything. She tapped the word readiness like it was carved in stone. You jump between extremes when you are scared, you shut down. Hearing my flaws laid out on a list hit hard. Even now I cannot tell if she was caring or strategic there. So you get to date while I sit in counseling. It came out sharper than I meant, but I let it stand. Her eyes widened for a second, then narrowed again. I have been researching this for us, I already did my work. That line landed like a verdict. Apparently my homework was just beginning. I know how that sounds, I know I sound naive. But in that room I felt like refusing proved her point. Like saying no would make me the rigid, boring husband. So I bargained instead of walking away from the table. Fine, I will see someone, but nothing starts without mutual agreement. She reached over and drew a large circle around mutual. Of course, no one moves forward unless both are comfortable. Her pen paused again, then she added a smaller note. We also wait until your therapist thinks you are ready. There it was, the hidden gate she quietly placed in front of me. I stared at that sentence so long my eyes burned. Because suddenly there was a clear path for her and a maze for me. She had already done her so-called work without me knowing. Mine was now official, supervised, and conveniently open-ended. I felt boxed in, and somehow I still nodded like it was wise. The last thing we added that night came from me. If we do this, our bed stays ours, nobody else in it. My voice, doctor. Opt on that last word and my throat tightened. I needed one place in the world that did not get shared. If she had pushed on that point, everything might have broken right there. She did not push, and that almost hurt more. Okay, our room is just for us, that does not change. She wrote it down with a quick stroke and closed the notebook. That feels solid, I think we built something that can actually work. I stared at the closed cover like it was a contract I had signed without reading. When I replay that night now, the imbalance glows everywhere. At the time I told myself balance takes time, nothing perfect overnight. I wanted to believe she was stepping into this with me. Not walking ahead on a road she had already explored. I was wrong, and that notebook was proof long before I opened her messages. Her phone chimed during our review talk and she flinched. We were at the table again, rules journal between us. She flipped the screen over with one quick movement. We're supposed to be focused right now. My attention was already gone, stuck on that locked display. Who keeps messaging you during this serious thing? I tried to sound curious, not suspicious, probably failed. It's the group I mentioned last time, just chatter. She nudged the journal closer like a distraction. I let it slide in that moment, which annoys me now. We walked through our "How was this week" checklist together. She reported nothing concrete, just a lot of vague feelings. More flirting, but mostly talking, nothing physical yet. Yet hung between us like a loose wire. I pretended I didn't hear it, even though it buzzed in my head. When it was my turn, I had almost nothing to share. No app, no dates, just trying to get used to the idea. My hands twisted together under the table, hidden. You told me to go slow, so I am. I watched her expression carefully, hunting for any flicker of guilt. She reached for my wrist and squeezed once. You're doing your part, I don't want you rushing. That sounded kind on paper, but off to me. I kept thinking about how unhurried she looked with that phone. I convinced myself I was projecting, which was a convenient excuse. Therapy started the next afternoon, which I had agreed to. The counselor sat across from me, calm, eyes steady. What brings you in today? I stared at a spot on the wall, then just blurted it out. My wife wants other partners, and I'm trying not to explode. We went through the basics of our arrangement in clipped pieces. I left out the journal pages, just described the tone. On the outside, she's thoughtful about it, inside, I feel cornered. I could hear how defensive I sounded, and I hated it. Part of me still wanted this stranger to think I was reasonable. She asked one question that dug under my skin hard. Do you trust your own read of situations or doubt yourself quickly? I did that awkward half laugh, half exhale thing. I leaned toward doubting myself, especially when someone sounds confident. Even saying it out loud felt like handing my throat to the universe. On the drive home, I replayed that question every mile. Trust your own read kept circling in my thoughts. By the time I pulled into our driveway, I was sweating. It felt like my brain was standing at a crossroads. One path was we're fine, the other was you already know. Inside, she was stretched on the couch, phone over her face. Her fingers flew over the screen while her lips curled. You're back early. The device dropped to her chest, locked in an instant. I told her the session ended on time, which was true and incomplete. She asked a couple of short questions about how it went. Not deep ones, more like checking a box. Think it'll help you ease into all this? I shrugged and sank into the opposite cushion. I guess it'll help me stop ignoring my instincts. For a second, her fingers froze around the phone. Then she smiled, quick, almost stiff. That's good, I want you grounded in this, not lost. It sounded like the right line, like something she had read. Underneath the words, something tightened across her shoulders. A few nights later, I woke up to faint light. The alarm clock showed some rude hour, nowhere near morning. She wasn't in bed, blankets pulled back on her side. I followed the glow down the hall and stopped near the doorway. She was perched on the edge of the couch, screen close to her face. Her thumbs moved in this fast rhythm, pause, fast again. She didn't notice me watching from the hallway. Every few seconds her mouth twitched like she was holding back a laugh. I cleared my throat and she jolted like she had been caught shoplifting. Couldn't sleep, just scrolling, go back to bed. Who are you texting at 2 in the morning? My voice came out lower than usual, almost quiet. Nobody specific, I was on a thread, time got away. Her explanation felt slippery like a bar of soap. I chose not to grip harder, which was a mistake. The first time the mystery name appeared, it was small. We were ordering food on our phones at the same time. Her notification banner slid down for half a second. Just a first name with a tiny star symbol next to it. Message preview showed 2 words, then vanished before my eyes could track them. She tilted the device toward her chest, motion almost automatic. I tried to play it cool, lips pulling into something like a smirk. New best friend or old one I never met. It's from that online space I mentioned, mix of people. She tapped the screen twice and the conversation disappeared. Here is where I start arguing with myself in hindsight. Because in that instant I could have asked more questions. I could have said, show me, let me see the context. Instead, I swallowed the discomfort like a pill. I told myself, you are learning to be open, don't act like a cop. From then on, that name kept popping up around the edges. During shows, during meals, during traffic at red lights. Little banners with that name, always shortened, always followed by a symbol. Her eyebrows would lift whenever those alerts came. If I looked directly at her, she'd lock the phone and ask me something unrelated. Our next weekly talk felt staged before we even sat down. She arrived with this weird lightness, almost energized. So check in time, how are you holding up? I stared at the journal, then at her hands. Depends, are we including late night conversations with Star Guy? Her mouth dropped a fraction, then snapped shut. That's an exaggeration, it's a community chat, not a date. Does he know that? The question hung there while she reached for a pen that wasn't needed. He's part of a bigger circle, we talk about podcasts and stuff. Does he know you are married and we're experimenting with all this? I leaned forward until my chair creaked under the shift. She tapped the journal cover with her knuckles. Everyone knows my status, I'm not hiding anything. The way she focused on the group instead of him felt intentional. Is he the first person you'd consider using these rules with? I hated how formal that sounded, like I was reading off forms. Her gaze slid past my shoulder, then back to my face. I'm not planning anything right now, I'm still feeling things out. Feeling things out might be the vaguest phrase I have ever heard. I know I sound jealous right here because I was. I also know part of my irritation came from pure ego. Nobody had messaged me like that, not even close. My phone was a quiet brick compared to hers. It made me feel lopsided, like she was sprinting while I crawled. That imbalance pushed me to open a dating app one night. I sat in the bathroom, back against the door. The installation bar crawled across the screen while my pulse raced. I stared at the sign-up page and froze. My thumb hovered over the next button and just stopped. I ended up deleting the app before finishing the profile. Shame and relief mixed in a way that made me nauseous. Therapy voices echoed in my head about moving at my pace. So I told myself backing out was progress, not weakness. Out in the hallway, I heard her laugh softly at something on her phone. Another small moment, maybe boring to anyone else, hit hard later. We were driving to get groceries, radio low. Her device buzzed in the cup holder and lit up. Again that same shortened name, same stupid symbol and a heart. Her hand shot out so fast the phone nearly slipped from her grip. My fingers tightened on the steering wheel, knuckles aching. So that's him again. I didn't bother to hide the annoyance that time. It's nothing, he just sent a meme, you'd roll your eyes at it. She tucked the phone into her pocket like it needed protecting. Is he aware you grab the phone like it's a bomb every time? I checked her face at the next intersection. I just don't want you reading into things that aren't there. She stared straight ahead, jaw clenched. Can we please not turn every ping into a court hearing? That line shut me up on the outside, but not inside. It made me feel like I was already on trial. Like any concern from me was proof I wasn't ready enough. I hated how quickly that label could be slapped on me. It turned honest discomfort into something she could diagnose and dismiss. Later that week, she mentioned a social event out of nowhere. People from that space are doing a casual meetup Friday. She was rinsing dishes while she talked, movements sharp. I might go for a bit, I think it would help me see this in real life. My stomach dropped because I knew exactly who would be there. Is Starboy attending that little gathering? I leaned against the counter, arms folded tight. Her mouth twitched at the nickname, but she did not laugh. He might, I don't control the guest list, it's a mix. There was a glint in her eyes that looked a lot like anticipation. I had a choice there that still bothers me. I could have said no way, this breaks our agreement. Instead, I reached for the rules we had written together. You'll tell me before you go and we talk after. I tried to make my voice firm, it mostly sounded tired. She dried her hands and stepped closer. I want us to treat this as data, not a crisis. Her fingers brushed my arm, light, almost rehearsed. If it feels off, we adjust or stop, we're not locked in. Those words should have sounded safe, they just rang hollow. The night of the meetup, she dressed with more care than usual. I leaned in the doorway, watching her fix an earring. Do I need to worry about anything tonight? She met my eyes in the mirror, held them too long. No, you need to trust that I remember we're married. She left and the house went strangely silent. I wandered from room to room with no plan. Every few minutes I checked my phone, even though nothing chimed. I kept thinking she'd text some small update, just a line. The screen stayed blank and my thoughts got louder. At one point, I picked up her journal from the table. The last page we filled together was still open. Pull the plug was circled twice in my handwriting. I traced the ink with my thumb until it blurred. Back then, I still believed that sentence meant something to both of us. 2 hours passed before my screen finally woke up. One short line from her. Still here, all fine, talk later. No emoji, no extra word, just that clipped update. It landed like a door half open, half slammed. I stared at the message until the screen dimmed. Every part of that text felt carefully trimmed. No mention of who she talked to or what about. No hint if he actually showed up at all. My chest tightened anyway because silence hides more than noise. I typed erased, typed again, fingers clumsy. Are you heading home soon? The dots appeared, then vanished, then came back slowly. Soonish, we're mid-conversation, don't wait up. Soonish dug under my skin like a splinter I couldn't grab. I dropped the phone on the couch and stood up. I paced between rooms without actually seeing anything. My thoughts ran circles that led nowhere helpful. Maybe she was bored and wished she were home. Maybe she was leaning in close so he could hear better. At some point, I opened the dating app store again. My thumb hovered over the same icon as before. I heard my therapist in my head, calm, annoying. Act from choice, not from panic. I still pressed download because panic felt like the only engine left. While the app installed, I checked my messages again. Nothing new, no missed calls, no extra line. I kept telling myself she had permission for this. That I had agreed, even if I hated how it felt. That did not make the knot in my throat smaller. The sign-up process asked for photos and a short line. I picked a couple of decent shots and wrote something basic. Every question felt like a quiz I hadn't studied for. What are you looking for? I typed, seeing what's out there, and instantly hated myself. By the time my profile went live, my pulse had leveled. Anger got replaced by something more desperate, almost sad. If she was out building a new connection tonight, I wanted at least the possibility of someone wanting me too. It was petty and lonely and way too human. The first match popped up faster than I expected, honestly. Her name was Hannah and she had a crooked smile. She opened with a simple question. So what made you join this mess? I stared at that line for a long time before replying. I told her a softened version of the truth. Long-term relationship shifting shape, trying to see who I am. That was the most honest spin I could stand. She wrote back, wild time to meet you, but I'm curious. We traded short messages until I heard the door open. My heart jumped and I closed the app on reflex. She walked in with her shoes dangling from one hand. Cheeks flushed, hair slightly out of place, eyes bright. Every detail screamed that the night had affected her. How was it? My voice sounded steady, which surprised me. She tossed her keys in the bowl and blew out a breath. Interesting, intense, not in a bad way. Her shoulders were tense, like she was replaying something vivid. Did he come? I skipped any pretense, went straight to the point. Her eyes flicked to me quick, then away. Yeah, he did. We finally met in person. The way she pronounced finally punched straight through my calm act. I felt something spike behind my ribcage, sharp and hot. What happened between you two tonight? I kept the question short so it wouldn't shake. She dropped her shoes beside the bench and straightened slowly. We talked a lot, mostly in a group, nothing outrageous. Just group chat, nothing alone. I did not blink until she answered. There was a little one-on-one outside, it wasn't long. She watched my reaction like she was checking vital signs. He's different face to F. Ace, more grounded, less performative. Grounded. I hated that word instantly, like she'd saved it for him. Any touching I should know about. I sounded like an officer, which I regretted as soon as it left my mouth. She inhaled through her nose and counted under her breath. He hugged me when he left, that's it. She moved toward the kitchen, clearly done with my questioning. You're allowed to ask, but please don't interrogate every detail. That line stung because technically she was right. It also felt way too convenient for someone exploring with a crush. We postponed the official debrief until the next day. She claimed she was exhausted and I didn't push. I lay awake later, her breathing deep beside me. My mind kept replaying the word finally like a loop. It made my skin crawl, thinking how long she'd waited for that moment. In the morning, she poured coffee and opened the notebook. I want to go through this carefully, not while half asleep. She clicked a pen against the margin, eyes on me. Ask what you need, I'll answer what feels reasonable. That last part already drew a line I had not agreed to. Did you feel attracted to him in person? No point pretending that wasn't the main thing. She looked down, then nodded once slow. Yes, there was a spark, I'd be lying if I denied it. Hearing her confirm it made my hands clench around the mug. Did you tell him about our arrangement? I forced my voice to stay low, not rise. He knows I'm married, he knows we're exploring boundaries together. She chewed her lip as she watched my reaction. He was respectful about it, he didn't push. Respectful was not comforting, it was scarier. A reckless guy would be easier to dismiss. So you liked him, he honored the situation, and you still want him around. I could hear my own bitterness seep through every word. She didn't flinch, which almost impressed me. I'm curious to see where that connection goes. She placed the pen down and folded her hands. I don't mean at full speed, I just want to keep talking. There it was, the door nudged open another inch. Our so-called experiment had just gotten its first real lab subject. That afternoon, my phone buzzed with a new message. Hannah again. I'm free Friday if you want to grab a drink sometime. I stared at the text while my heart did a weird flip. If she was moving from theory to practice, maybe I should too. I wrestled with it for hours, not going to lie. Therapy words fought with my ego the entire time. One part of me thought I should wait, go slower. Another part was sick of being the nervous half. Guess which side won? I messaged back after dinner. Yeah, Friday could work, early evening. She responded almost immediately. Pick a place you like, I'm easy. I caught myself checking the hallway like I'd just committed a crime. The next step was somehow worse than saying yes. Telling my wife I had plans without telling her the truth. I stood in the doorway while she answered a text, probably his. Some coworkers want to grab a drink Friday after work. The lie slipped out smoother than anything honest I'd said lately. She glanced up, thumb still poised over her screen. That's good, you need more of your own thing. She looked genuinely pleased, which hurt in a strange way. How late are you thinking? I shrugged like it didn't matter. Probably a couple of hours, nothing wild. I kept my eyes on the floor so she wouldn't see. Give me a heads up if you're staying much later. She went back to her phone as if the moment was done. My guilt stood there loud and obvious with nowhere to go. Friday came faster than I expected, which sounds dramatic but true. All day I bounced between excitement and dread. I rehearsed answers to questions she might ask later. I also practiced casual small talk in my head for a stranger. I was sweaty and wired before I even left the house. Hannah picked a quiet bar near her office. I got there early and almost turned around at the door. My legs felt heavy like they belonged to someone else. Then I saw her wave from a table and forced myself forward. You made it, I was starting to think you belayed. We settled into this awkward but not terrible rhythm. She cracked jokes about bad profiles and awful first dates. I laughed more than I thought I could that night. For brief stretches, I forgot the mess waiting back home. Then a couple nearby touched and everything rushed back. Halfway through my second drink, my phone vibrated. First one message. Where are you now? Before I finished reading it, another arrived. Send me a picture. My throat went dry instantly, like someone flipped a switch. Hannah noticed my expression and tilted her head. Everything okay? I forced a smile that probably looked like a grimace. Let me check something outside, I'll be right back. On the sidewalk, I opened the thread fully. More lines stacked under the first two. Are you? Ray still with coworkers right. Answer me. My chest thumped so hard it almost hurt. I typed one sentence, then deleted it, then another. Finally, I wrote the truth in the laziest way possible. I'm out having a drink with someone we matched online. The dots appeared almost instantly after it delivered. Seconds later, my screen lit with an incoming call. Her voice hit me before I could even say hello. You're on a date right now. People passed by on the sidewalk and glanced over. I thought that was the entire point of this stunt. The word came out sharper than I intended, but I left it there. You told me you were with colleagues. Her tone dropped when she said that, low and dangerous. That's not a tiny detail, that's lying to my face. I pressed my back against the wall to steady myself. You've been meeting this guy in person and I haven't lost it. That is not the same thing and you know it. I heard movement on her end, fast, agitated. I told you where I was and who I was with. She took a breath that crackled in the speaker. You hid this, that breaks the entire foundation of what we agreed. I let that accusation sit between us for a moment. Because technically, she was right about the lie. I had dodged, reworded, arranged the story to make it easier. Still, hearing her talk about foundations made something in me snap. The foundation already cracked when you built this around that guy. Silence stretched long enough that I thought the call dropped. Then she spoke again, quieter now, almost shaking. End this and come home, we need to deal with this now. I looked through the window, saw Hannah watching me with concern. For a second, I wanted to walk back in and finish my drink anyway. Instead, I swallowed whatever pride I had left. I'll wrap up and head back soon. She hung up without another word, leaving my ears ringing. I stared at my reflection in the glass for a beat. I barely recognized the person looking back. Going back inside to that table was brutal. Hannah studied my face as I sat down again. Let me guess, complicated situation just got more complicated. I laughed once, short and bitter. That would be the nice way to put it. I didn't dump the story on her, that felt unfair. I just told her I had to cut it short. You deserve someone who isn't juggling dynamite at home. Her eyes softened with something like pity, maybe relief. We parted with an awkward half hug and no promises. On the drive back, my hands trembled on the wheel. I kept replaying her words about trust and deception. She wasn't wrong about what I'd done tonight. I had crossed one of the few lines I myself drew. But the double standard burned so bright it almost lit the car. When I pulled into our driveway, every light upstairs was on. I sat there with the engine off, heart pounding in my ears. For the first time, I wasn't only scared of losing her. I was scared of what staying might turn me into. Then I grabbed my keys and walked toward the front door anyway. She was waiting in the hallway with her arms crossed. Did you enjoy your little night out? No hello, no pause, just that line thrown like a stone. I shut the door slower than normal to buy half a second. My brain scrambled for something that didn't sound pathetic. I met someone for a drink, yes. I dropped my keys in the bowl harder than I meant. You asked where I was, I told you when you pushed. Her eyes narrowed and she took a step closer. You told me coworkers earlier, that was not a slip. She wasn't wrong and that made it so much worse. If she had been completely off base, I could fight cleaner. I panicked, I didn't want to set you off right away. I rubbed the back of my neck until it hurt. I knew you'd hear the word date and explode. Her laugh came out short and sharp, almost a bark. Oh, so this is my fault again, I overreact, right? She motioned toward the living room with a flick. Sit down, we're doing this properly, not in the doorway. My legs obeyed before my pride could argue. We ended up facing each other across the coffee table. No notebook this time, just two people who had run out of margins. You lied about who you were with, that matters more than the drink. She leaned forward, elbows on her knees, eyes locked on me. You know how many people use open stuff as an excuse to sneak. I clenched my fingers together until my knuckles ached. And you know how many use it to justify something already running. Her jaw tightened just for a second, then relaxed again. This is not about him, this is about your deception tonight. She pushed my mistake into the center like a piece on a board. Screw it, yes, I lied about the coworker's part. I forced the words out fast so I wouldn't swallow them. I met a woman, we talked, had 2 drinks, then I left. My voice dropped on that last part as if it helped somehow. I didn't touch her beyond a goodbye hug in the parking lot. Her eyebrows shot up at the word hug. Already physical on the very first outing, impressive. She sat back, crossing her ankles with deliberate calm. This is exactly why I said you weren't prepared yet. That line hit harder than any insult could have. I know I messed up, I'm not pretending otherwise. If you're waiting for me to claim pure innocence, you'll be waiting forever. I twisted the truth because I was tired of sitting still. But hearing her use my mistake as proof of her theory lit me up. I made one bad call tonight, you built a whole hidden world with that guy. Her gaze sharpened at the mention of him. We talked, we hugged once, you act like we ran off together. She picked a cushion seam and dug her nail along it. Whatever is between us is out in the open, yours was under a fake story. That was the moment I felt something in me pull loose. Don't do that, don't pretend I am the only one bending rules. I leaned forward until my knees brushed the table edge. You barely texted me from that meetup, but your phone lights up for him all day. My chest burned, but my voice stayed steady somehow. Are you honestly going to stand here and lecture me about transparency? Her nostrils flared just a fraction. We agreed you would go through some counseling before jumping in. She lifted a hand like she was counting off points in a debate. You barely started and already you're hiding key information. Each word felt rehearsed, polished, ready to be deployed. This isn't a courtroom and you are not my therapist. I exhaled hard enough that my vision blurred for a second. You want to talk about readiness, let's talk about your late night sessions. Her shoulders stiffened as soon as I said late night. You whisper, typing on the couch while I pretend to sleep. That chat helped me not feel so alone in this. She threw the explanation out quickly like she'd practiced it. Those people understand this path, they aren't judging every step. She looked away when she said judging. It felt less like a confession and more like a pre-built defense. Is he part of whatever those people are? I didn't even try to hide the bitterness anymore. She chewed at a fingernail, a habit she usually hated. He's there, yes, but it's not some secret romance. I caught the tiny flick of her eyes when she used the word secret. Back then, I still clung to the idea that I might be overreacting. That maybe my jealousy painted everything neon red. I wish I could tell you I trusted my gut sooner. Instead, I tried to balance the scales by beating myself up. It's not pretty, but it's the truth. I get it, I blew it tonight, I'm not dodging that. I spread my hands out like I was laying cards down. I wanted to feel like I wasn't just the guy waiting at home. The words tasted sour as I said them. I'm tired of being the only one cautious while you sprint ahead. Her face softened just a touch, which almost undid me. I don't want you miserable, that's never been the goal. She sank back into the cushions, a little deflated. I just can't pretend I'm satisfied with how things were before. She looked tired in that moment, and that twisted my anger. We wound up in that awful loop where both of us were right and wrong. She had every reason to call me out on hiding the date. I had every reason to question how entangled she already seemed. We circled the same 4 points until our voices went hoarse. Nothing really moved, except my sense that something important was still missing. At some point, she stood and rubbed her temples. I can't keep going over the same ground tonight. She headed toward the hallway without waiting for an answer. I'm taking a hot shower and then I'm crashing, we'll revisit this later. The argument shut down on her schedule, not mine. When she disappeared into the bathroom, the house went eerily quiet. I sat there with my hands on my knees, breathing shallow. You know that feeling when the fight stops but your body doesn't believe it. That was me, every muscle still ready for impact. Something in my chest kept whispering, "You still don't have the whole story." Her phone lay on the arm of the couch, unlocked. Screen lit, a fresh alert sliding down from the top. That same shortened name with the star plus a line preview. "Did you get home okay? How's he taking it?" My pulse roared in my ears so loud I barely heard the water running. I'm not going to pretend there was a big moral debate. There should have been, but there really was. I grabbed the device with both hands before the display faded. One thumbprint and the chat opened like it had been waiting for me. I stepped into the kitchen so the bathroom door stayed out of view. The thread scrolled back for weeks with almost no gaps. Morning greetings, late-night check-ins, everything in between. Voice notes, inside jokes, photos of places she'd been that I was. He used Padan. Aims I had never heard from her mouth. With each swipe, my stomach dropped a little lower. Here's the part I still struggled to talk about without shaking. The dates at the top of the conversation went farther back. Messages from months before she brought up opening things. Her first "hey" to him was way earlier than any talk with me. All my illusions about this being a joint idea cracked in 1 second. I clicked on an early chunk almost at random. Her words jumped out at me like they were in bold. I feel trapped and unseen and guilty all at once. Sometimes I wish I could live 2 lives and not hurt anyone. He responded with exactly the kind of comfort hungry people fall for. You deserve joy without chains, you're not doing anything wrong by wanting more. Reading that line made my vision go hot and blurry. It wasn't just the language, it was how smoothly he slotted into the gap. He validated every quiet complaint she'd never fully voiced to me. And he'd been doing it for a very long time. Further down, the tone shifted from sympathetic to intimate. Her sending selfies before going out, asking which outfit he liked. Him ranking them and telling her what made each one dangerous. Little comments about my habits, my routines, our evenings. He joked that I sounded reliable in a sleep-inducing way. It hurt more that she didn't push back on that insult. She laughed in the texts, added her own jabs. I love him, but it feels like living with an older roommate sometimes. That one punched me right in the lungs. I had never heard anything like that from her face to face. Then came the part I'd secretly been afraid to find. Screenshots from our rule conversations, cropped and annotated. She finally agreed to the framework, now I just need him to not freeze. My hand clamped tighter around the phone as I read. She was talking about me like a project, not a partner. He wrote back, "You're guiding him through, you're the brave one here." I actually laughed, this ugly half-sound, half-breath. Brave, that's what he called her for rewriting our marriage without me. The word made me want to smash the screen against the counter. I kept going even though each line cut deeper. There were messages from the night of that first meetup. Her texting from the bathroom. He's already suspicious, but I can't back down now. Followed by a winking face from him, like this was all entertainment. One photo almost made me drop the phone. Them together, shoulder against shoulder, in what looked like a parking structure. Her smile leaned outward toward the lens toward him. His caption underneath. "Look at us, partners in crime." If you're wondering why I didn't walk out right then, trust me, so am I. The simple answer is shock, the longer answer is more pathetic. I stood there with the fan humming and the shower running. Frozen between wanting to scream and wanting to crawl into the floor. All I could think was, this wasn't an experiment, it was cover. The most recent section snapped me out of that trance. Messages from just before I came home from my date. He lied about where he was, I'm losing my mind. Him? He's doing what guys do when they feel you slipping away. Her again. I know, but now I can use this to push him into therapy harder. That line drained every last drop of sympathy I had. It turned me from flawed partner into object in a strategy. I didn't feel guilty anymore, I felt played. The bathroom door clicked off and the water stopped. I locked the phone and set it exactly where I found it. My heart hammered so hard I thought she'd hear it down the hall. I walked back to the couch and sat like I hadn't moved at all. My hands were still shaking when she walked in with damp hair. "How was your shower?" The question came out too evenly, almost calm. She paused, eyes searching my face for a hint. Hot, I needed to cool off after that fight. She reached for the phone without looking and picked it up. I watched her glance at the screen and relax a fraction. Whatever last text she saw reassured her that her world was intact. In my head, a switch flipped that I can't unflip. I wasn't just hurt anymore, I was done pretending we were on equal footing. This wasn't two people fumbling through something new together. Back then, I still didn't know what I would do with that knowledge. I didn't pack a bag or announce some dramatic decision. I just sat there, heart jackhammering, while she scrolled 3 feet away. She smiled at something on the display and tucked her feet under her. And I realized she had already moved into a different marriage than the one I was living in. I went through your messages. I threw it out like a grenade, no warning. Her fingers froze on the screen, then clenched around it. For a second, we just stared at each other, both knowing exactly what that meant. You what? Her voice hit that thin high edge I'd heard maybe twice be. Therefore, I pointed at the phone in her hand, not even trying to soften it. Bathroom was running, you left it open, I saw enough. My heart hammered, but my words finally lined up. You had no right to do that. She stood there with the device pressed against her chest. That is a massive violation, you realize that, right? I almost laughed because the word violation landed so crooked. You're talking about privacy while building a second relationship off to the side. Her mouth opened, then shut, then opened again. It is not a second relationship, that is not fair. She paced once in a tight line, bare feet slapping the floor. We talk, we support each other, it got blurry sometimes, that is all. Even she seemed to hear how small that sounded. I saw months of you two planning my part in this. My voice shook now, but I did not stop. You were workshopping speeches, pushing me toward counseling, checking my reactions for him. I watched the color drain from her face at that last word. You turned me into some project you two could dissect after hours. She leaned on the back of a chair, knuckles white. That is not how it was, you are twisting things. Her eyes glistened and she blinked hard like anger might evaporate the tears. I needed a place to vent about us, I was drowning. That drowning line stabbed because I had no idea she felt that deep. You were not just venting, you were strategizing. I heard my own voice go flat, which scared me more than shouting. You literally wrote that you could use my screw-up to push me harder. I watched the recognition hit as she realized which line I meant. Her shoulders sagged like something inside finally gave way. She sank into the nearest chair, phone dangling from her hand. I said things I am not proud of, I admit that. Her thumb rubbed at the edge of the case, nervous and frantic. I was scared to talk to you directly because you shut down. She looked up at me like that should justify dragging a stranger into our fights. I took a breath that felt like sandpaper. I checked out sometimes, I know that, I own it. I hid a date behind a fake work story, I own that too. I spread my hands, palms empty, nowhere to hide. None of that equals building a whole emotional setup with another man before you asked my opinion. It started small, then it got away from me. Her voice cracked at the edges for the first time all night. I should have pulled back, I should have told you earlier. She pressed her fist against her mouth, then dropped it. I didn't know how to stop without losing everything at once. There it was, the closest thing to real regret I had heard. For a moment, a tiny one, I almost folded. Because I could see the fear behind all the polished words. And I'm not some hero here, I hurt her in my ways. But the timeline sat between us like a thick file I could not ignore. This whole open thing was never our idea together. I stepped closer, not threatening, just refusing to retreat. You two warmed it up, tested it, made sure it would cover you. My throat tightened, but I kept going anyway. You did not want honesty, you wanted a story that made your affair sound enlightened. She flinched at the word affair like I had slapped her. Do not call it that, you know that is loaded. Her foot tapped fast against the leg of the chair, restless and sharp. We talked, we hugged, we never crossed that last physical line. The way she hit last made my skin crawl. You crossed about 10 other lines on the way there. I could feel my face heating, but I stayed where I was. You mocked me with him, you shared our fights, you let him label me boring. Her eyes flicked away at that, shame finally catching up. I can forgive clumsy choices, I cannot live with being the joke in my own house. She covered her face with both hands for a beat. When she dropped them, her cheeks were wet. I was angry at you, I felt invisible, I said awful things. Her voice dropped low, thick, almost hoarse. I do not actually think you are dull, I was trying to impress him. That part somehow made it worse. My humiliation turned into a performance piece for another man. And now what, you expect me to be grateful you told him you love me. The word love tasted strange in my mouth right then. Feels like you loved his attention more than anything I ever gave you. She winced and sat straighter, spine stiff. I care about him, I am not going to lie about that. Hearing her admit it out loud knocked the air from my chest. But my commitment is here, this is where I built a life. She gestured around us like the walls could weigh in. You cannot have both and call it gross. I shook my head slowly, like I was finally catching up with reality. You wanted me home, steady, devoted, while he got the spark. My voice thinned on that last word, but I let it hang. That is not a marriage, that is me playing support cast in Yo. Show. She stood again, restless, arms wrapped around her own torso. We can reset this, we can strip it back, start clean. She stepped closer, searching my face for any crack. No chatting with him, no exploring, just us and counseling for a while. Her hand reached toward mine, hovering there like a question. There was a time I would have grabbed it without thinking. Back when any hint of reconciliation felt like oxygen. Now it looked more like a rope that led back into the same maze. I do not trust that you even know what clean looks like right now. Saying that out loud hurt both of us, which somehow felt honest. So what, you want out just like that? Her voice rose again, this time with pure panic under it. After all those years, after everything we tried, you walk. She stared at me like I had set the room on fire. You are really going to throw the whole thing away over this? I swallowed hard, throat aching. You keep framing this as one mistake, one messy connection. I shook my head once slow. This was a pattern, a setup, a long-term reroute. I cannot live inside something where I am the last to know the script. She pressed her back against the wall, eyes wide. Please do not make a permanent decision in this state. Her voice dropped to almost a whisper. We can talk to a professional together, we can have someone mediate. I believed her fear, I did not believe her timing. Maybe we can talk later, I am not ruling out that piece. I grabbed a gym bag from the closet and tossed it on the bed. But I cannot stay here tonight like nothing shattered. I yanked drawers open and pulled a stack of clothes without looking. Every room in this place has him in it now. She followed me down the hall, hands shaking. Where are you even planning to go? Her shadow moved across the doorway as I zipped the bag. A friend's couch, a cheap place, the car, I do not care. Anywhere that doesn't echo with his pet names when I close my eyes. That is dramatic, you are not thinking straight. She reached for the bag strap, fingers wrapping around it. If you walk out like this, it will be harder to fix. Her grip tightened like she could anchor me in place. You are choosing pride over us. I am choosing self-respect over being a backup plan. I tugged the handle free and slung it over my shoulder. Her face crumpled at the word backup like I had hit her. Let the lawyer or the therapist tell me later if I overdid it. Right now I know I cannot sleep next to you and pretend this is normal. At the front door, I hesitated for the first time. Not going to lie, my whole body wanted to turn around. Some scared part of me still thought staying meant safety. Another part finally understood that staying like this meant losing myself. That second part won by a hair. Text me when you land, wherever that is. Her voice came from behind me, small, drained. I didn't face her, I could not handle her expression. I will let you know I am alive, that is all I can promise tonight. I walked out before my resolve cracked. The first night away was rough in ways I did not expect. Not just the empty corner of a borrowed room. It was the silence where our constant background noise used to be. My phone buzzed with a couple of short messages I did not open. Every vibration felt like a hook I refused to bite. A few days later, I sat across from my counselor again. You look like you haven't slept, she said, studying my face. I laughed once dry. Found out my marriage syllabus had a co-author, it killed naps. Even joking about it made my chest tighten. We went through everything, start to that door closing. I own my lies, my avoidance, the way I drifted into autopilot. She didn't absolve me and I didn't ask her to. But she did say one sentence that stuck. You can forgive someone and still decide you're done sharing a home. That line lodged in my head and never left. Because I knew, even in that mess, that I didn't want revenge. I wanted distance, clarity, the ability to hear my own thoughts again. I did not need her to suffer, I just needed myself back. It sounds neat written out, it felt anything but neat in the moment. Right now, as I type this, we are in that ugly middle. Lawyers are exchanging drafts, our names sit on too many forms. Some days I read her long messages and my resolve wavers. Other days I wake up on my friend's lumpy sofa and feel lighter. Healing and doubt keep taking turns, and I am learning not to panic when doubt shows up. If you ask me whether I still love her, I would probably say yes. Love does not evaporate just because trust did. I can miss who we were and still reject what we became. Both things can sit in the same body and it sucks. But pretending it is simpler would be another lie on top of all the others. So that is where I am now. A guy who let himself be talked into a version of open that only opened one dire. Action. Who messed up trying to keep up, then finally checked the receipts. I do not know exactly what my future will look like from here. I only know I will never again sign up for a deal where someone else gets all the freedom and I get all the loyalty.